Tennis has Federer versus Nadal. Basketball had Magic versus Bird. Boxing witnessed Ali versus Frazier. But motorsport gave us Hamilton versus Verstappen. Like those legendary rivalries, it wasn't just about skill. It was about contrasting philosophies of greatness. The established champion versus the hungry challenger. Experience versus raw talent. Calculated precision versus fearless aggression. For 22 races in 2021, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen didn't just compete for a championship. They elevated their sport to mythical status. Every qualifying session became a psychological duel. Every race start was a battle of wills. Every championship point was earned through combat that transcended mere competition. After 1,296 laps of the most intense rivalry Formula One has ever witnessed, it all came down to lap 1,297. One final corner, one controversial decision, one moment that would crown a champion and create a legend. This is the story of how two gladiators at 200 miles per hour gave us the greatest championship battle in motorsport history. A rivalry that, like all the greatest sports stories, was decided not by who was fastest, but by who wanted it most when everything was on the line. Part 1. The stage is set. As 2021 dawned, Formula One was at a crossroads. Lewis Hamilton had just claimed his 7th World Championship, tying Michael Schumacher's all-time record. Mercedes had won 7 consecutive constructors' titles. The sports hierarchy seemed set in stone. But in Milton Keynes, Adrian Newey and the Red Bull racing team had been working on something special. The RB16B wasn't just fast. It was a Hamilton hunting missile designed with one purpose: to end Mercedes' era of dominance. Max Verstappen entered the season as the sport's most exciting talent. At just 23, he'd already won 10 Grand Prix races, but always seemed destined to play second fiddle to Hamilton's Mercedes. 2021 would be different. This time, he had the car to match his ambition. Hamilton, meanwhile, faced a pressure unlike any he'd experienced before. At 36, time was no longer on his side. The chance for an unprecedented 8th title, one that would cement him as the greatest driver in Formula One history, might never come again. The psychological warfare began before the first race. Hamilton, the master of mind games, tried to downplay expectations. Red Bull are clearly the favorites, he insisted. Verstappen, typically direct, made his intentions clear. I'm here to win championships. Christian Horner and Helmut Marko at Red Bull sensed blood in the water. Toto Wolff at Mercedes knew his team faced their greatest challenge in a decade. The paddock buzzed with anticipation. After years of Mercedes dominance, Formula One finally had a championship fight on its hands. The stage was set for something extraordinary. Nobody predicted just how extraordinary it would become. Part 2. First Blood in Bahrain. March 28, 2021. The Bahrain International Circuit. Under the floodlights of Sakhir, the opening shots of the greatest championship battle in Formula One history were fired. Verstappen grabbed pole position, but Hamilton's experience showed on race day. The Dutch driver led for 50 laps, seemingly in control of both the race and the championship narrative. Then Mercedes played their strategic masterstroke, an undercut that caught Red Bull sleeping. The final laps became a preview of the season to come. Hamilton, on fresher tires, hunted down Verstappen with the desperation of a man who knew his legacy was on the line. Behind them, the F1 world held its breath. With 3 laps to go, Verstappen cracked under pressure. He went wide at turn 4, allowing Hamilton to sweep past. The 7-time champion had drawn first blood, but not before Verstappen had shown he could match him wheel to wheel. Verstappen attempted to pry the lead off Hamilton, but could not, and ended up just 0.745 seconds off the winner. Less than a second separated them after 57 laps of racing. The message was clear. This championship would be decided by the smallest of margins. In the Red Bull garage, the mood was conflicted. They'd had the pace to win, but strategy and pressure had cost them victory. Hamilton's post-race smile told a different story. He knew he'd just survived the first real challenge to his dominance in years. The championship fight was officially on. Neither driver knew they'd just experienced the most straightforward race weekend of their epic battle. Part 3, Imola's reign and redemption. We had to wait another 3 weeks for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, but it was worth it. A rain-soaked Imola race filled with all manner of drama. April 18th would prove that this championship wouldn't be won by the fastest car alone. Hamilton started on pole, but found himself under pressure from the opening lap. Verstappen, finding grip where others couldn't, shadowed the Mercedes driver through the early stages. When the rain intensified, both drivers faced their greatest test, not just of speed, but of composure under pressure. Then Hamilton made his first major error of the season. At Tosa Corner, the 7-time champion lost control and slammed into the barriers. For 20 agonizing seconds, his season looked over. Somehow, incredibly, he reversed out of the gravel and rejoined the race. What followed was Hamilton at his absolute best. Driving a damaged car through spray and chaos, he carved through the field with moves that bordered on supernatural. From 9th place to 2nd, with the fastest lap for good measure, it was a drive that reminded everyone why he's considered one of the greatest of all time. Verstappen won his first race of the season, but Hamilton's recovery drive was the story. The psychological impact was enormous. If Hamilton could fight back from the brink like this, how could anyone beat him over a full season? Red Bull had their first victory, but Mercedes had something more valuable: the knowledge that their champion wouldn't go down without the fight of his life. Part 4, Silverstone, the crash that changed everything. July 18th, 2021. Silverstone, Hamilton's home race. 140,000 British fans packed the grandstands, desperate to see their hero claim victory on home soil. What they witnessed instead was the defining moment of the entire championship battle. The weekend began with controversy. Sprint qualifying, a new format, saw Hamilton and Verstappen engage in wheel-to-wheel combat that had fans on their feet. Verstappen emerged victorious, extending his championship lead to 33 points. Hamilton looked beaten. Race day changed everything. From the lights out, Hamilton hunted Verstappen with a desperation bordering on recklessness. Lap after lap, he probed for weaknesses in the Red Bull's defense. At Copse Corner, one of the fastest sections on the entire F1 calendar, Hamilton finally made his move. What happened next will be debated until the end of Formula One history. Side by side at 180 miles per hour, neither driver yielded. Hamilton's left front touched Verstappen's right rear. Physics took over. The Red Bull launched off the circuit, slamming into the tire barriers at 51G, the hardest crash of Verstappen's career. As medical teams rushed to the scene, Hamilton continued racing, unaware of the impact force his rival had endured. The Dutch driver walked away, but Red Bull's fury was volcanic. Christian Horner accused Hamilton of dangerous and desperate driving. The championship lead had been cut to just 8 points, but the psychological damage ran deeper than any point swing. Hamilton's victory celebration, in front of ecstatic home fans, became one of the most controversial moments in F1 history. Had the 7-time champion crossed the line from hard racing to reckless endangerment? The paddock was split, and the relationship between the two camps would never recover. Part 5. Hungary's chaos and Monza's collision. The championship fight intensified through the summer months, with each race bringing new drama. Hungary delivered chaos that could have ended both their seasons. A first-lap pile-up that saw Hamilton continue with a damaged car while Verstappen recovered from the back to claim second place. But it was Monza, the temple of speed, where their rivalry reached boiling point. September 12, 2021. The Italian Grand Prix sprint weekend format meant double points were available, and neither driver could afford to blink first. The race began with Hamilton leading and Verstappen stuck behind Daniel Ricciardo. When the McLaren driver pitted, the stage was set for another Hamilton-Verstappen duel. Neither expected what came next. Hamilton's pit stop went wrong. A slow service dropped him back into traffic, just as Verstappen, having pitted himself, rejoined the race. Turn 1 at Monza became a collision course neither driver could avoid. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton crashed during the F1 Grand Prix of Italy at Autodromo di Monza. Verstappen's Red Bull launched over Hamilton's Mercedes, the rear wheel inches from the British driver's head. Only the Halo device, introduced in 2018 amid driver protests, saved Hamilton's life. As both cars sat stranded in the gravel trap, recriminations flew. Hamilton blamed Verstappen for not leaving space. Verstappen accused Hamilton of moving under braking. The stewards sided with Hamilton, giving Verstappen a 3-place grid penalty for the next race. More importantly, both drivers walked away, knowing how close they'd come to catastrophe. The championship fight was pushing them both beyond normal limits, and the season was only 2/3 complete. Part 6. The momentum swings. As autumn arrived, the championship swung wildly between the two protagonists. Russia saw Hamilton claim victory from the back of the grid in wet conditions, a drive that showcased his supernatural ability to find speed when it mattered most. Turkey delivered Verstappen's response, a controlled performance in difficult conditions that extended his championship lead back to 6 points. Each race became a high-stakes poker game, where the smallest mistake could decide the title. The United States Grand Prix in Austin provided the season's purest wheel-to-wheel battle. For 56 laps, Hamilton and Verstappen diced through the Texan heat, trading positions and pushing each other to superhuman levels of performance. Verstappen's victory extended his lead to 12 points, with 5 races remaining. Mexico delivered Red Bull's knockout punch, or so it seemed. A dominant 1-2 finish for Verstappen and teammate Sergio Perez stretched the championship lead to 19 points. With 4 races left, Hamilton's 8th title looked like a fading dream. But champions aren't made by giving up when the odds turn against them. Hamilton had been counted out before, and his response would remind the F1 world why he'd won 7 championships already. Part 7. Hamilton's impossible comeback. Brazil, November 14th, 2021. If Hamilton's championship hopes were to survive, they needed a miracle at Interlagos. What they got was something even more extraordinary: the greatest weekend of Lewis Hamilton's career. Disqualified from qualifying for a technical infringement, Hamilton started the sprint race from the back of the grid. In 24 laps, he carved through the field to 5th place, a drive that had the F1 paddock questioning the laws of physics. Race day brought more drama. A first-lap collision dropped Hamilton to last place. Game over, not for a 7-time world champion with nothing left to lose. What followed was pure artistry. Lap by lap, Hamilton hunted down the field with overtakes that belonged in a video game rather than real life. His pass on Verstappen for the lead around the outside of turn 4 was simply impossible, except Hamilton made it look routine. Victory in Brazil cut the championship gap to 14 points. Qatar followed with another Hamilton win. Saudi Arabia's inaugural Grand Prix delivered the most chaotic race weekend in F1 history, but Hamilton emerged victorious again. Suddenly, impossibly, the championship stood level, 369.5 points each. After 1,296 laps, it all turned on the 1,297th and final. Everything would be decided in Abu Dhabi. Part 8. Abu Dhabi, the most controversial finish. December 12th, 2021. The Yas Marina circuit. Under Abu Dhabi's twilight sky, the greatest championship battle in Formula One history would reach its climax. Neither Hamilton nor Verstappen knew they were about to participate in the most controversial race finish in the sport's 71-year history. Hamilton started beautifully, diving to the inside at turn 1 and seizing the lead. Verstappen's challenge was aggressive but unsuccessful. The Mercedes driver had the pace and the position to control the race from the front. For 50 laps, Hamilton managed the gap to perfection. Verstappen pushed, probed, and pressured, but the 7-time champion's experience showed. With 8 laps to go, Hamilton led by 12 seconds. The 8th title seemed inevitable. Then Nicholas Latifi crashed his Williams at turn 14. The safety car emerged, and suddenly everything changed. Red Bull seized their opportunity, pitting Verstappen for fresh soft tires. Mercedes, leading the race, kept Hamilton out on worn hard tires, the strategically correct decision that would prove fatally flawed. What happened next remains the most debated moment in F1 history. Race director Michael Massey's decision to allow only the lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen to unlap themselves, then immediately restart the race, was unprecedented and controversial. On Sunday, 12th December 2021, at the season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Max Verstappen narrowly beat Lewis Hamilton to victory, claiming his maiden title and becoming the first Dutch world champion. One lap, fresh soft tires versus worn hard tires, youth versus experience, the future versus history. At turn 5, Verstappen swept past Hamilton with a move that decided not just the race, but the championship. Verstappen's win secured his first Formula One World Drivers' Championship of his career by 8 points from Hamilton, and Red Bull Racing's first since 2013. Closing, the legacy of legends. Was I robbed? Obviously, Hamilton said. I mean, you know the story. The controversy surrounding Abu Dhabi will forever overshadow one of the greatest championship battles in motorsport history. But beyond the debates about race direction and sporting regulations lies a more profound truth. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen pushed each other to heights that redefined what was possible in Formula One. 22 races, 10 wins each. Max Verstappen of Red Bull Racing Honda won the Drivers' Championship for the first time in his career, having claimed 10 race wins across the season. A championship decided by the smallest possible margin under the most controversial circumstances imaginable. They gave us Silverstone's intensity, Monza's drama, Brazil's brilliance, and Abu Dhabi's chaos. They showed us what happens when two generational talents refuse to yield, when winning means everything and second place means nothing. Hamilton lost the championship, but gained something equally valuable: the knowledge that he'd pushed a generational talent to his absolute limits. Verstappen won his first title, but learned that being champion means carrying the weight of history and expectation. Their battle elevated Formula One to new heights of popularity and drama. It reminded us why we fell in love with motorsport in the first place: the human drama, the impossible skill, the moments where legends are born and legacies are forged. The greatest championship battle ever? The numbers say yes. The drama confirms it. The legacy will endure forever.